Thank you so much, Ruchi. A warm welcome to all of you, and thank you, Ruchi, for your support always. So, a little bit about myself. I've been associated with the Cambridge Assessment International Education for the past 12 years. I'm a Cambridge program leader in teaching and learning. I'm also the academic advisor for GEMS Wellington Academy UAE. Uh, Personally, I've been moving between Sweden and India as I completed my master's and my PhD coursework from Uppsala University there. I'm teaching there for a semester during the summer. Um, so, just a little bit of how we would go through the session. Since it's a webinar, we are a little bit restricted in the way we are able to interact with each other. So, we would follow the traffic light. So, after each segment, I would just ask you to give your feedback. If it's red and if you need any more explanation, then please go ahead. If it's amber and you need a little bit more explanation or there's some clarification, you can put it in the Q&A or you can ask me directly. And if it's green, then we are good to go. I can already see some people introducing themselves. A very warm welcome to all of you. So we would just kind of have a little bit of an icebreaker activity. You are free to choose any emoji that you like. You're not restricted to the emojis on the screen, but which emoji describes you as a facilitator for your learners? If you can just have a little bit of interaction with that. So I repeat, you can choose any emoji. You're not restricted by the emojis on the screen. So if you can just have a little bit of reflections on which emoji you would choose to describe yourself as a facilitator. You can put the emojis in the chat box. A flashlight. Okay, that's brilliant. Good evening, Mr. Christo. I can see Miss Akansha also has given her emoji. It's a very powerful emoji. I can see Miss Priya having a dancing emoji, which is so creative as well. Alina, I think you have used like two emojis, and I can imagine why you might have chosen that. Miss Rohini, of course, we are all nurturers. Heba is also like with the nurturing emoji. So that's like a great start. We have Miss Dimple choosing the nurturing emoji as well. That's brilliant. We have Sirisha. I don't know if I'm pronouncing name correctly. A torch again. Miss Kavya Jigsaw, connecting to different parts of learning will help students connect their learnings. I think that's a great way to put it as well. Um, so that's really good, and thank you for your emojis because that gives us a little bit of glimpse of how dynamic your classroom spaces are. So coming today, so we have Amlan sharing the Dart as well. We are using our learners for target. So we are just looking particularly at the FLE English, but I would like to repeat that we are using strategies which would be applicable from lower secondary and primary teachers who are teaching lower secondary and primary English as well. So the strategies described today would be applicable for all levels, and we would have a deep dive into the spiral curriculum as well. So just for teachers who are also teaching the board classes or who will be taking up the IGCSE curriculum, there is a syllabus change, as some of you might have been aware. So from 2027, we are undergoing a syllabus change for FLE English. So what it looks like in terms of the syllabus change, I will just go into detail about that change, but very quick overview of the curriculum framework. And this curriculum framework is not restricted to IGCSE. This curriculum framework we have actually for FLE throughout, so primary, lower secondary, and IGCSE as well. So we are having a look into the structure of the curriculum framework. Now, I would like to kind of make a small note over here. We have a little bit of this understanding that speaking and listening skills are sort of hidden in the FLE curriculum, whether it's primary, lower secondary, or IGCSE. It's not so. There is a separate strand that covers the speaking and listening activities as well. And as we will explore the resources, we will see that how the speaking and listening strands are absolutely there, and how you can utilize them to make your classroom language learning space more dynamic. This is the aim of the first language English curriculum. Like read a wide range of text fluently with good understanding, enjoying, exploring, appreciating a variety of language, read critically, write accurately, work with information and with ideas, listen to understand, and use spoken English effectively, and acquire and apply a wide vocabulary. Now, all this might seem a little abstract to you, but don't worry. We would go and have a deep dive into each of these aims and how you can inculcate a better, more engaging learning space for your learners. So, when we map the aims of the syllabus and how the curriculum framework is structured, we see that the aims are to enable students to apply the curriculum framework strands effectively as they are exploring the syllabus. So just a very quick bit about the 2027 update. Revised wording of the syllabus aims. There is introduction of some new learner attributes, updated phrasing of assessment objectives, adjustments to some question paper tasks. So the core knowledge and skill remains the same. There is not a big overhaul or changes in terms of how the syllabus and the curriculum is structured. So designed to improve clarity and accessibility. So think of it as evolution and not exactly a change. Again, a very quick overview of the paper structure. So previously from 2024 to 2026 syllabus, you would have 3 questions. All the questions were compulsory. In the paper structure of 2027-2029, there are 4 questions. Again, all questions are compulsory. The marks allotted to each question have been universalized to 20 marks, and the reading text, 3 text combined length approximately remains the same. So it's not like they would have to read more. I would just like to mention, as we would explore the syllabus, if you have any further questions about Richie, is it for me? Is the
Yeah,
voice?
essentially, your voice is having some background buzz sound.
Okay, okay,
The
okay.
other device, if you put on mute, it will be fine.
Yes, I have put it on mute. So hope this is better. Is it? Can you still hear the buzz with the background noise? Okay, okay, perfect. Um, so we can see that there has been a structure that is there. So the paper has been restructured into 4 compulsory questions. I would just make something clear here. There are no additional questions added to the question paper. Previously, for the comprehension question, we would have 1F for the summary task. Now, that was sometimes confusing for the students because they would think that text B and 1F, which is a continuation. So that has been reworded to a second question, but we'll get into this in a bit. Also, if you're opting for the IGCSE curriculum, there are 2 options that any school can follow. One is you can either have paper 1 reading and paper 2 directed writing and composition, or you can have paper 1 reading and component 3 coursework portfolio. The aims and what are the requirements of the coursework portfolio have been clearly established in the School Support Hub. So if your school does choose the component of coursework portfolio, the resources also support the component course portfolio, as well as the School Support Hub also gives you ample scope. However, I would like to just have a small reflection. Most of the schools I have seen choose paper 1 and 2. If any schools are going for component 3, then you can please put it in the chat box as well. So as we are going through the session, I would just add some of the resources that can be used for the coursework portfolio as well, if your school has gone for that option. So this is something that I would like to harp on, that this is an IGCSE skill that we are talking about, AO1 reading. But however, these skills are pertinent throughout the levels that we would be discussing. So they are not restricted to IGCSE level. We have these reading skills that are scaffolded at primary English, lower secondary English, and IGCSE. But for IGCSE specifically, we are also talking about AO1. These are the reading skills. AO2, most important part of AO2 writing skill that I find, of course, all the skills are important, is adapt your style of writing to suit a specific purpose and interest your audience. And of course, we have the listening and the speaking skill. As you know, the speaking and the listening test is a separate part. It is not included in the syllabus. If any school wants to take up the speaking and the listening part, and if the candidate does get a score above than the pass mark, then that they get a separate mention and certificate. It's not added to the score in any whichever way. Um, these are some of the key approaches that we would be exploring today. And as we know that Cambridge books, resources, curriculum, syllabus, they are all aligned to the key approaches. We know active learning, assessment for learning, differentiation, language awareness, metacognition, and skills for life. So after the icebreaker of how you see yourself as a facilitator, you replied with some brilliant emojis. Can we just have a small reflection before we really delve into the language part, that which metaphor represents your classroom identity as a language teacher? Can you think of any metaphor that where you see, and whether, like, we can also have a quick reflection whether that is different from your role as a facilitator in general, and when you're in the language classroom, how do you see? And of course, I can understand that it's never a constant sort of metaphor that you would be identifying yourself, but uh, mermaid, oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful metaphor. Thank you, Miss Meeta, for sharing that. We have Miss Rohini as shadow. I can completely identify with that as well, because I'm dealing with teenagers and they don't want me hovering over. So I'm like a lighthouse, standing in the background. So shadow. So thank you for sharing that. Amlan is a butterfly. That's beautiful, because that gives so much of positivity, and it's also very nurturing because you can like help them explore as well. So those are waves of an ocean. Thank you, Miss Akansha, for that. I'm an ocean as well. So we have Miss Sudha writing that. So that's amazing. We have Miss Krishna writing as a garden, of course. An airplane rising and raising. Thank you, Miss Priya. That's really nice. We also have Vela, the walls have ears listening poignantly, right? That's a beautiful way to put it as well. Tulasi, metamorphosis, I think that's beautiful as well. We are constantly trying to go through and use that structure. Sailor Star, thank you, Christo, for writing that. That's really, really nice. So we have some beautiful metaphor, which we see. Miss Elena is writing, I'm a daylight personified. Miss Sonia, the mirror. That's such a beautiful metaphor. I think all the metaphors that you have chosen is like really, really interesting. And it's also making me think of my role as a language teacher as well. So they're like really unique and very, very unusual metaphors. A journey, expedition, right? That's a beautiful way to put it, Miss Madhurima. So thank you for that. So just to give you a little bit of that psychological comfort as well, like after such beautiful metaphors and so many reflections on the metaphors as well, whenever we hear the word syllabus change, we always have a little bit of that uncertainty seeping in, that how we are going to adapt to the syllabus change. So thankfully, we have the 6th edition. Miss Anugna is also adding to that a beehive. That's beautiful, right? So over here, I would like to delve a little bit into how the sixth edition First Language English book really supports the syllabus change from 2027. So I just like to look at it from this perspective that from the educator's lens, when I am going into the classroom, I have a lot of support in terms of the resource that I have and how it's helping me adapt the syllabus change very beautifully. In fact, it's really having that scaffolded experience that we were talking about. So, just a brief overview. This is what the workbook also looks like. So we would delve into the learner book, but the workbook also looks like this. We have the learning intentions that would be stated. We would have the reading, writing skills. We would have review exercises that bring together skills learned in the corresponding course book unit. And I would also help you align the corresponding course book unit and the learning intentions as we were exploring. There in the teacher resource, we have an updated teacher resource. There is lots of end of section practice questions. There is a slight change in the question paper. So at any point in time, you feel that, okay, in the school support hub, you don't have the access to the previous question papers. Of course, you can adapt the previous question papers to the new syllabus. Like I mentioned, there is no overhaul syllabus change as such. But if you ever feel you have lots of specimen questions given in the teacher resource, in the course book, and we will just explore that how you don't need to have any sort of anxiety for the syllabus change. Also, as we are looking at the teacher resource, I find it very useful because we have an updated teacher resource that clearly aligns the learning intentions that we are supposed to scaffold into the classroom. Um, and of course, we have a lot of hand holding and scaffolding given. So, in terms of the lesson planning, so the teacher resource, as you can see, helps you not only to chalk out the learning intentions and the success criteria and the assessment objectives, but helps you through the entire lesson planning journey. So we have the starter activities that you can use the teacher resource for. You have the differentiation ideas, and of course, you have a lot of other scaffolding. So this is what your Cambridge Go will look like with all the resources together. You have the teacher resource here, you would have the workbook, you would have the course book. I would also like to highlight that there is a section where you have answers only for the teachers. So these answers are the answers that only you have access to. And there are lots of videos in the course book, which is also very helpful for you to engage your learners and to have more concrete examples of the units. You also have video instructions as well as transcripts for those units as well. So this is like a very brief overview of what your Cambridge Go will look like with all the resources that you would be having. I have also given you a brief overview of what the teacher resource or the only for teachers answer sheet would look like. So this is a given answer sheet for the worksheet that is given to the student, and this is what it would look like only for you, right? Now, coming to the sixth edition course book, as you know that IGCSE and in general FLE syllabus is divided into reading and writing. We see the scaffolding starting from the primary level itself. We will also delve into how lower secondary teachers can also benefit from the IGCSE demarcation. So I would take this opportunity and this moment to just have a small mention. As language teachers, I think over the years, I have learned the importance that all of us come together. Sometimes at the beginning of the session, sometimes during the session, teachers who are teaching lower secondary, teachers who are teaching IGCAC, and also primary level teachers, because there is a lot of scaffolding that is required right from the earlier stages. So if we have active discussions throughout at all levels, that is really, really effective. Understanding the IGCSE structure for schools that are ultimately preparing their learners for the IGCSE, even for the lower secondary teacher, as well as the primary teacher, is quite effective. I have seen that how that sort of visibility really brought in a lot of changes that they can inculcate with their learners right from the very beginning. So, just a brief overview. Uh, the fifth edition did not have the scaffolding as clearly as we have the author of First Language English book, Miss Helen Rees, really demarcating both the sections very clearly. So we have a reading section which is aligned with paper one, and we have a writing section which is aligned with paper two. And you can see that the units are also scaffolded with the kind of questions that the learners will be getting. And we will also have a bit of deep dive into the questions that we would be looking at. So we'll just take a quick pause. There was some information that unfolded. So if we are good to go ahead, so can we have green? If there are some clarifications, then we can just have them here or in the Q&A as well. So we have a lot of green. So thank you so much for your responses. That's really great. Thank you so much. Uh, Thank you. Thank you. So we have Mr. Christo mentioning Amber. So if you have any particular query, you can put it in the Q&A and we will come back at the end of the session as well. And if it's something like a clarification that you have, you can also put it here. But if it's a specific question, then I would request you to put it in the Q&A. So thank you so much. Uh, so now we are coming to the skills. And when we mention the skills, I would just like to take an opportunity to mention that how, as a language teacher, for me, understanding or dividing these skills made me a better educator in terms of how I give feedback, not how I teach so much, but definitely that helps, but also feedback becomes more effective. So we have the reading skill. You have to see that every question in the IGCSE paper is aligned to specific skill. It can be one or more skill, but it's aligned to specific skill. Now, when we are giving feedback, this is something that just hold on to this thought a little bit, because I would also like to show this example later as we proceed through the slides, how the feedback is given. So if the question demands a certain skill that we are analyzing, say, for example, if the question is demanding an R3 skill, and there is some use of R5 skill, but it is not the dominant skill that is used, you would see that any mistakes done with that nominal use of that R5 skill is overlooked and the dominant skill is assessed. So this is something that we will discuss a little bit more in depth with the learning intentions and how we can scaffold it. So similar to the reading skill, we also have the writing skill, and all the IGCSE questions are aligned to the writing skills in some way or the other. I repeat, sometimes one skills can be used or sometimes more than one skill can be used. So sometimes it can be W2 plus W3. Sometimes we are only looking at W4. So the alignment of the questions are all with the skills. We also have the speaking and the listening skills. And in the course book, there are constant references and tips to the speaking and listening resources as well. So you would also get a lot of support from this. Now, these learning intentions are actually taken from stage 9 book. It's not taken from the IGCSE book. I wanted to show that how there is a very clear scaffolding between lower secondary, primary, and of course, IGCSE. The learning objectives, as you can see, is the number is the stage, which is stage 9. And as you can also see, the skills mentioned are the skills that we just had an overview of. Now, here I would like to have a very, very brief reflection. I've done some offline trainings as well, where we have actually done some activities to explore this thought. Now, as a language teacher, when I just say read a particular text, and I want to give feedback on the basis of the reading that they have done, my feedback becomes very abstract. I mean, they have done reading, so I'm testing them on comprehension. I'm testing them on whether they have been able to decipher the word meanings or not. I'm testing them on whether they have been able to evaluate the ideas or not. There are too many things happening for any educator to be able to give effective feedback. So, what breaking down of the learning intention means that for that particular unit, say unit 1.1, we are only testing them for the identification of genre, right? So, we are not giving them an abstract task. We are saying that this is the comprehension given, this is the passage given. We are giving them the tools. We will have a quick look as to how we are providing the tools, and then we are breaking down the task, and our feedback becomes very specific. We are testing them on whether they have been able to identify the genre or not. All the other things at that point in time is taking a back seat because we really want to hone in onto that skill as well. And the IGCSE question paper, as well as the primary checkpoint lower secondary paper, the checkpoint papers as well, are all aligned with this concept. They are not testing general reading skills, they are not testing general writing skills. Each question is aligned to a broken down learning intention, and the examiner is very clear on what they are looking for in terms of success criteria. Therefore, the feedback becomes extremely effective. So, just having a little bit of that overview of when I first started teaching, I would give them broad writing activities like just write a story. And then I would do my best to give my feedback in the most scaffolded way. But now I can give them to write a story, and my learning intention is dialogue writing. So I'm just testing them on how well they have written the dialogue. Again, I can give them to write a story, and my learning intention can be that how the setting has been done. And I'm just testing them on the setting of the place. So that really helps in giving feedback. As you can see that this is from a stage 6 book. And again, you can see learning intentions and success criteria are broken down. Sometimes the learning intention can be really specific, as you can see by the number of the learning objective. This is from a stage 4 book. And again, you can see that the learning intention and the success criteria are broken down. If you have a look at this learning intention to identify and use adverbs and adverbial phrases, it's a very, very specific learning intention, appropriate for a lower stage where maybe the teacher wants to hone in on the language and the grammar skills more effectively. We have, again, very specific learning intentions, and this is how the scaffolding is done. Right. So now we come to the learning intentions and what it looks like in the learner book. So in the teacher resource, you have the learning intentions, which are looking like this. So you know exactly which skill you are covering when you are doing that particular unit. These learning intentions are taken from the 6th edition IGCSE book. And as you can see that for the learners, the learning intentions are very simple and they have been scaffolded down, but it's less information than what you are seeing in the teacher resource, of course. Uh, I would just have a very small reflection. When I started teaching the curriculum, I would invariably skip this in the learner book. I would not take that 2 to 3 minutes of time to make the learners really aware of the learning intentions. Over the years, I have understood the importance of spending some time with the learning intentions and giving the learners some space to have some reflections and make them aware of what they are learning. There was this phrase that a lot of people use, that if your learners didn't know where they are going, it's really a scary adventure for them. So they have to be equipped with what is happening. And just spending some time with the learning intentions helps them to decode what's happening, where they are going. This is a learning intention that is taken from the workbook as well. And as you can see that it's been scaffolded down. This is the syllabus correlation grid. This is available on Cambridge Go. You will find it in the teacher resource. As you can see that it's taken from the 6th edition IGCSE book. Now, we have talked about the skills so much. The idea is this has been matched for you. You don't have to sit and match that if I'm doing this unit, which skill is getting covered. As you can see that in the course book, if you are doing units 1.2, 1.3, 2.1, 2.2, these are the skills that's getting covered. If you think that your learners are already there, so you have a clear visibility of which skill is recurring, where can you find more resources. So if you need more resources for the writer's effect, you know exactly where. You can see for the writer's effect in the downloadable worksheets, there is like a lot of worksheets that's available. So this gives you an overview, helps you to have the clear map. So most of the time when we use this teacher resource and the curriculum framework grid, it's very effective for us to plan exactly which skill we are covering with which unit, and what are the learner gaps and what are the areas we can have a quick look with scaffolded learning as well. Now, this is very specific to IGCSE. This is a mapping that I have done as I was talking about that every question has a particular skill that they are concentrating on. This has been done for IGCSE, but it holds true for lower secondary checkpoint examination and primary checkpoint examination as well. And in general, the learning intentions are mapped to the skills that we are expecting the learners to achieve. So it's applicable in general when you're making your question papers. If you can just keep in mind that when you're designing your questions, that you're not testing them on overall skills, but very specific skills according to the questions that's required. Now, this mapping is not clearly mentioned in the syllabus document, but in the learner guide and in the specimen papers, they do point out which skill is getting covered. And based on that, I have just done a quick mapping of the skills and which skills are being covered. The coursebook approach that we have, like we mentioned, is divided into reading and writing. We have each unit divided into skills and getting started, and we have the support for progression at each stage. Now, this is something that the course book has done specifically, and Miss Helen, she actually had come down to India. I'm sure some of you must have been aware she had extensive sessions, and she could have a reflection on how she designed the book as well, keeping in mind the needs and the necessities of the learners for the IGCSE curriculum specifically. So each unit has a skill focus and a getting started. So this is very, very unique in the sense that the teachers have a very clear overview. I would like to mention here the getting started activity is the same for the primary and the lower secondary textbooks as well. And I would again like to share something. That's the box invariably I would skip when I first started teaching, but I've learned not to do that because that can be an amazing prior knowledge testing, what I need to do in the unit, where my learners are, and how we can go about in having the syllabus. So I have taken some various, skill focus and getting started from the course book. I would just like to, draw your attention to how sometimes the getting started activity can really activate the learners and help them to, really think. I think one of the pertinent questions and queries we always find is how to teach author's effect, how to teach writer's effect. That's like such a abstract concept sometimes, and we have a lot of queries for that. Just a small getting started activity like this can be a big activator. So if you have a look at the tone flag fluttered sadly in the gentle breeze, And the getting started activity said, okay, well, if we remove the word sadly and gentle, what does the sentence tell us? And it's just a very simple way of having this getting started activity, which, sort of reminds me a little bit with early years. I remember there was this anecdote that this person gave in early years. They said that just to initiate the concept of mathematics, they always start with subtraction because it's easier for the child to say, if there were two ladybugs, take away one ladybug, how many are left, rather than having another one come in, and then they would have to understand that. It's a very, very good way. That same strategy is used, how to start a particular unit and how do you give a lot of credence to that. So this is a very, very small way of, I have taken examples from the course book that aligns with the syllabus structure, but also just to give you a brief overview of when we talk of summary writing, when we talk of, how do we make the learners understand summary writing? Again, the key question is, I always like to look at it from the perspective of we are giving them transferable skills. By transferable skills, I mean that it's very important for us to handhold the strategy for them, because if we just tell them to do the task, there is always luck involved. They don't know the actual process, so they might know how to go there, but they wouldn't know how to navigate through the map. So it's very important for us to give them the scaffolding, the strategies that's required to do a particular task, and these strategies have been beautifully broken down in the resources. So whenever I find myself stuck with how do I break down the summary writing task, and you can see there is a pre-reading, there is a skimming, there is a scanning, there is a rereading, there is a close reading, and then there's this inferential reading. Now, the Cambridge questions are designed in such a way that if we don't go through the close reading and then we don't have the inferential reading, then the additional question that they have with the summary writing from 2027, that would get missed out. We'll come to that question in a bit. Again, this is from the teacher resource. In the teacher resource, additional language support is given for learners who are not native speakers of English, of course, but also who need more support and handholding. So you can see like very, very scaffolded, broken down examples given, sentence structures given, how to explain simple past to the students. A lot of layering is provided to the teachers, and you would be able to use that. Over here, again, I've taken some examples from the teacher resource where you can see that exact, like what examples you would give to make the learners understand the context better. Her face contoured and she clutched her back closely to her. He sank into the chair and put his head in his hands. So very, very specific examples are given, and how you would be using those examples. I would also like to point out over here, there are these boxes in the teacher resource as well, which gives you some ideas of what other kinds of text you can use to give more scaffolded reading. So in the prose, you can see that Lord of the Flies is mentioned. You can see Anita Desai is mentioned. You can see Sarojini Naidu poetry is mentioned. So a lot of ideas are etched out for you in the teacher resources. But now coming to this is an addition to the summary writing question that we have had. So previously, the summary writing question would be a 15-mark question where the students would just have to write a summary. Now it's broken down, and we have a 5-mark question added to it, which is talking about assess the writer's attitude towards the cloning of endangered animals and use 3 details from text B to support your answer. So first, the student has to test the writer's attitude and reflect on the writer's attitude, and then support why the person felt that this is the writer's attitude by identifying 3 details from the text. Now, you have full scaffolding of tasks like this with support from the course book. So in the course book, you would have exact text that would help you to have the scaffolding where they are saying, using your own words, explain what the text means by. Identify a word or phrase that suggests the same idea as. Explain what the writer means by this. Now, I would also like to share something over here. Um, Sometimes we see that when we are teaching the IGCSE curriculum, past papers are a form of resource. I would just suggest that if you are really encouraging your learners to build skills, don't start with the past paper until you're well into the course. I'll give you a very small reason for that. They have to be taught these skills through scaffolding. If you give them a past paper which says, now write the summary, without them understanding what are the stages, right? It would feel overwhelming for them. It would feel that, how do I understand the writer's attitude? Where do I find the three details from? So doing some sort of exercises, activities that helps them to break down the task for them. As you can see, there is a lot of hand holding given in the course book. So you're not starting from scratch. You're not asking them right in the beginning that identify the three details. So there are always sample examples given. And this is the perfect example of active learning that we can talk about, because what you're doing is you're not hovering over them, you're giving them the skills, you're telling them this is what it might look like. Now, can you identify two more words and have it like this column? So they are not having that fear that they have to now immediately start writing about the writer's attitude and select three examples. They are given a lot of hand holding. And after every activity, there is this reflection section that is very important. And even if we don't have time to go through each and every reflection section in all the units, I would also like you to take some time in helping them to understand which strategies worked for them, to have a little, because a lot of learning is happening with that reflection time. Like we might do the activity and we might not have the reflection time, and a little bit of that learning is lost as we are going through that section. I would like to point out over here, this is the exact practice questions that we were talking about, because it's a new syllabus and you might have just one specimen question paper to fall back on. Like I said, there is not a complete overhaul. You can use the previous question papers to adapt it with the specimen paper and change the questions as well. However, there are lots of practice questions, exam style practice questions that are there in the course book that you can use effectively for the 2027 syllabus. Now, what I meant by don't start with the past paper, can you see when you have the practice questions, even at the beginning of the unit, there is some hand holding that is given, right? So the learners are not directly asked, like, identify the phrase that made you feel this. There is an option given that why the phrase zoned in on was used rather than the phrase looked at. It's a very simple strategy, but we are modeling answers for them. We are modeling the scaffolding for them. We are not starting with, can you identify? We are starting with, can you look into how zoned in was used and not this phrase? And as they are able to vocalize that, they are getting the strategy and the skills. So it's very important. Even sometimes when you feel that you don't have time to go through all the scaffolded activities, of course, you can pick and choose which activity you can go through. But it's just a suggestion that just go through the scaffolded part for each of the questions. That would be very, very effective. Again, we can have a text wedge saying, identify the main points in a text. The important thing is not the identifying the main points in the text, but as you can see, this is the exam question that is taken from the 2027 question paper. And you can see the strategies that's given to the learners to start decoding the exam question in a layered way. So how they would point out the main point, how they would add the details, and how they would give the examples. And as we had also talked about, if you see the speaking and the listening tip boxes, they are also very important because you are giving them guidance, and that part of the curriculum, even though you're not going for a separate examination, is getting covered in that as well. So again, I mentioned that this is the question, summary question that is taken from 2027 question paper. And you can see that this is the example from the course book. Now, if you are a lower secondary teacher and you are teaching for checkpoint or you're not teaching for checkpoint, understanding this layered scaffolding is very important because you are preparing the learners to go to the next stage. And it's very important that they know these techniques by the time they come to IGCSE. Because if that part is taken care of by the time they're coming to the IGCSE level, it's a lot easier for the teachers because they know that the students have the scaffolding. Now, these are also really, really important. In the course book, we see since it is written also by a principal examiner, Ms. Helen Rees Bidder is a principal examiner of first language English paper. There is a lot of scaffolding given to what are the common mistakes the candidates make, usually. And you see the tips are extremely examiner comment friendly tips. However, I would not just like to link it to just the IGCSE examiner comment tip. What I would like to link it to is skills that anyone writing a paragraph needs to have. And this scaffolding is also done in the lower secondary exams, in the lower secondary stages resources. However, since IGCSE is an assessment-based curriculum that we are preparing the learners, it's a syllabus that we are helping them to overcome rather than a curriculum. It's very important for us to harp on these skills. So you would have small strategies like paragraphing your summary. You would have small clarifications on importance of length. Now, we usually find when there is a mention of the word limit that, oh, the examiner is going to be extremely punitive about the length. Now, if you can just see how, and this is exactly how the principal examiner and the examiners correct. It's not just that they would be punitive if they cross like 120 words and they have 140 words. No, they have given you a very clear strategy. A summary will usually be about 120 words. You do not need to count the words exactly. But if your summary is too long, it will probably include repetition, details that are irrelevant to the task, or unnecessary examples, which should all be avoided in summary writing. So they are not being punitive just for the sake of punitive by saying, oh, you have crossed 120 words and therefore I'm going to deduct marks. No, they are saying that you don't have to be so stressed that you are counting the number of words when you're writing the summary. But the problem will be that if you're exceeding 120 words, most probably you are not answering the task that has been assigned to you. And this goes back to deciphering or unpicking the task as well, which we will look at in the next stage as well. I have also included a sample specimen answer of a summary that has scored high, a 7 out of 10, and a 3 out of 5 for reading. Now, this is also very important to know because sometimes we have a summary task is like summarizing the text, and it's basically a reading task. Now, you can see that how the marks are always segregated into reading and writing. So the examiners are also giving you marks. Now, this is a small suggestion for teachers who are teaching lower secondary as well. You are not, if you're not taking checkpoint examination, you are not bound by these assessment marks, right? However, it's my small suggestion that in your school examination, if you also start correcting, and it's completely up to you how you divide your reading and writing marks. If you feel that your learners are little uh, not that fluent in writing, you can absolutely put less marks for writing if you feel that. But I would just suggest that segregate marks awarded for reading and writing so that the learners are aware that corrections are done this way. So even if you're not teaching any board classes, this is just a small suggestion. Maybe some semesters you might not be doing that. Maybe some semesters you can be doing that. But just to acclimatize your learner that the marks. There is a segregated marks. Now, why it's important to understand that even in a summary task, there is a separate marks awarded for writing. That's where the scaffolding comes from in the course book, remodeling the text, right? So you are given strategies of how you can use your own words. This is taken from the workbook, right? They are again given that hand holding to understand between explicit meaning and implicit meaning, and then the language focus choosing synonyms, and they have been given the idea of remodeling the text. This is where the writing part of the summary comes in. So this is the scaffolding that I was talking about, that even in a scaffolded, even in a summary question, when you look at the question paper and you're like, oh, this is just a summary that they would have to write with this sort of passage. And if you're using past paper as a resource to start the syllabus of IGCSE, what happens is it's a bit overwhelming for the learners because they don't have the strategies to decode the summary in this way. That first we have to remodel the text. There is an entire strategy that is given for the writing part of the summary. Then we have to understand how the reading part of the text works and how we can decipher the information that would suit me in my task. So that is very, very important as we go through the stages. And this is what it looks like, the plan. Now you can see how you are equipping the learners to club similar points. So synthesize as less popular with tourists, so less crowded, link these points together as similar, synthesize these points as very connected. And then, you can have that one sentence sort of. So plan, draft, and refine. This is the way to go about when we are addressing the entire part. And this is what it looks like in the course book. So you have the exact exam style questions. So because this is the first year, 2027 will be the first year. Like I said, there might be some sort of psychological, some sort of anxiety that we don't have that many question papers. You don't have to worry about. You have enough exam style questions scaffolded in the course book itself. This slide is very important because this is what equips the learner. Many times we have this thing that, oh, for first language English, learners need amazing vocabulary skill. Of course, it's good to have vocabulary exposure. It's good to know a lot of synonyms, but we are also training them to decipher meanings of words from context, because in the examination they might get words that they might not have heard. So we are also equipping them with these skills, that how they can decode the words just by reading and just by looking at the context. So, and you are giving a lot of scaffolding to how that context can be utilized as well. So you can see predict possible meanings. This is very important. And you can see how active learning is scaffolded in activities like this. So anytime you have a writer's effect and you have the learners by saying that, oh, I'm scared. What if I have a lot of words that I don't know? But if you are giving them the skills with which they can predict meanings, and they are confident in predicting meanings from the context, that just simplifies everything to a different extent altogether, right? And of course, in the workbook also, you constantly have boxes like this. I've taken some specific boxes just to show you when we have that, from where can I help them to understand the tone of the voice? And we have constant scaffolding of these voices, where when to use a direct speech, what's level of formality that you can use, how you would use the sentence structures, everything has been provided for. This is just a quick showcase that on Cambridge Go, with the course book, you also have videos supporting each of the units. So as you can see that this unit is for reading for comprehension. Unit 2, reading for comprehension. This video, we are going to focus on how to identify explicit and implicit meanings in a variety of texts. This is an important skill that will help you to develop effective reading and comprehension. You should also think about why writers choose to use what means. This was just a very, very small snippet of the kind of videos. There are ample videos. So whenever in the course book there is a video sign, you would know that there is a corresponding video, and these videos are 7 to 8 minutes long, which is going into detail of how it has to be introduced. It's giving a lot of reflection points for the learners to have reflections on what they are supposed to do from the units as well. So it's a great hand holding that is provided. Coming to this part where we have been constantly talking about that how the IGCSE is not just limited to the IGCSE, but it's from lower secondary and primary. This is just a snippet of how the spiral curriculum works, right? So when we are talking of the author's effect, in stage 7, you can see the command word is comment on a writer's choice. In a stage 8 Cambridge course book, the command word is explain how a writer's choice of language contributes to the intended purpose. In a stage 9 book, we can see that analyze how language choices contribute to the intended purpose. So if you just look at the verb of the command words and how it changes, you can see the scaffolding that is also provided, not just in that particular syllabus of IGCSE, but also throughout as the learner is progressing from primary to lower secondary. So to just give you a small idea, this is taken from when we talk of author's effect, right? And we talk of simile, we talk of metaphor, we talk of the way the writer has been able to use the language. So this is taken from a stage 5 primary English book. And as you can see, the learners are introduced to the concept of simile here. An example of a simile is given. Again, when we look at the same stage 5 book, the learners are also exposed to what is a metaphor. And they have the scaffolding idea of what's a metaphor. Again, when we come to a stage 7 book, we can see that how the learners are kind of nudged, we would use this word nudge, explore how a writer uses language to establish a setting. And that's your getting started learning intention. And then you have the getting started activity where they are given several adjectives and they are asked to reflect on what it means and how the writer is using the language as well. Then again, in a stage 8 book, you have more scaffolding given in terms of the use of language, right? So identify and comment on the implied meanings in a text. So already we are seeing a lot of semblance of what the expectation of IGCSE writers' effect and choices are. And over here, this is what we are coming down to. So when we are looking at the IGCSE version, so you can see that from stage 8, we are slowly segueing to the IGCSE version. In the IGCSE course book as well, there is ample evidence given and scaffolding given to what an author's effect should look like. But again, as I would mention, that we are not starting with, oh, let's just see what the words can mean. So initially, we are nudging them to think the father rushed to the school. The writer could have said the father went to school to collect his daughter. So instead of this has been said. So what would have happened if we would have said this, not used the word rushed, if we would have not used the word ancient, if we would have not used the word cruelly? What information would have been left out? So you are giving a lot of scaffolding to your learners to identify the text. Again, the same thing is given in terms of figurative language and in terms of how the figurative language can be used. So you are getting a little bit of all this is given in the course book. And you can see it's a 4.3. This is in 4.2. So here you are not introducing the learners to the figures of speech apart from what they already have a knowledge. So you're just making them think what would have happened if we would have used this word. Then as we are progressing, you're nudging them a little more. You're nudging them to think, okay, can you now think of and identify figures of speech? So we are not starting with the absolute extreme. We are slowly progressing to where we want to go. And this is what the workbook looks like. So the workbook builds on the course book, adding structured step by step support, right? So now in the workbook, we have the word, then we are asking them to draw out the meaning, then we are asking them to draw out the context and how the context can be used in the phrase. Another strategy that is given, and you can see that how the course book and the workbook strategies are aligned. Zoomed out, zoom in technique with the author's effect. And it's so important that we equip them with these techniques because it's just like how the picture is an activator. You're zooming in for one particular word, you're zooming into one particular phrase. And what happens when we take that away, or what happens when we have that reflection? These are further questions that you can see that this is finally what the exam question and the workbook question helps to do. The course book sets up, builds the topic, while the workbook extends it through additional scaffolding. As you can see, the workbook just breaks down more questions for the author's effect. And this is just a quick overview to show you that this is taken from a Cambridge 2027 exam specimen paper, what kind of questions it's coming before the candidate goes to do the writer's effect. So just identifying the words, the synonyms that we were talking about, the remodeling of the text also helps here. So nothing is happening in isolation. The remodeling of the text that they were doing for the summary writing is used effectively in question 3 as well. And this is what an author's effect looks like. So when we talked of the zooming in and zooming out technique, this is a perfect high candidate response that is given in Cambridge. So as you can see how they are zooming in on the words. Ambushed sounds like when soldiers leap out to capture the enemy and the enemy has no chance to fight back. It's exactly the same that why the word rushed was used and what impact would have happened if the word rushed would not have been used and a simple word would have been used like went there. So this is exactly what they are being asked to do in an author's effect when they come to the exam level. So they are being prepared. And so even if they are not able to identify the figure of speech, that's okay, as long as they are able to reflect on the language as well. And you can see that there is a lot of guidance and scaffolding given by the examiner. And these exam tips are given throughout all the units. So you don't have to look suddenly at the examiner comment and say, oh, I didn't know this is not a big thing. So I had a lot of teachers, if you see over here, there is this section that the numbers next to the respond indicate that time has been taken to count the exact number of words in the answer. This is not an efficient use of examination time. However, the response does add meaning and associations precisely to selected phrases and shows some clear understanding of the writer's use of language. Now, over here, the examiner has clearly mentioned that 3 examples were advised and the candidate has used 4 examples. Now, you have to understand that the candidate was not punished because the candidate has used 4 examples. There is a very thin difference. The candidate lost some mark because the candidate, in order to choose the 4th example, missed out on giving full explanation to the 3rd example. So they didn't lose marks for choosing 4 examples. So they are not punitive about it. But the candidate missed out on the opportunity to develop the 3rd example properly, and that's why the candidate lost out on marks. Now, these are the examiner comments that you might see in a specimen response. But as you can see that as you're going through the course book, all the strategies are given to you. So you don't have to depend on just the examiner comments suddenly to realize that, oh, this is something that the examiners are not bothered about. They are looking at it. So the strategies help you to decode what is happening at the exam level as well. And that's very important that you spend some time with the units and the strategies explored, and you help your learners have the scaffolded understanding as well. So I think a lot of information has been given. I'm sure you must have some reflections, some things that you might want to. So if we can just have a quick reflections on whether it's green and or if there is any more. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you for the feedback. Any Q&A, you can put in if there is any quick query that you want clarification, any quick doubt that you want clarification on, then you can also put that. And thank you for that. Yes, in the Q&A, I can see one question which is posed by Tanbir. Yes, there would be a feedback code shared at the end of the session, and you would get a certificate at the end of the session. So I hope that answers your question as well. Thank you, Ms. Rohini, for that reflection as well. And we have so just feel free to have any of your queries. Thank you for that feedback. This is really good, and it gives us an insight that we can step on to the next level. So thank you everyone for the feedback. So now we are going into the text structure. Now this is also a very, very important part that covers two parts. One of the writing text and one of the reading part as well. So as you are aware that in IGCSE, in the reading paper also, they have an extended task which falls under sort of writing, reading skills. And in the writing paper, of course, they have their writing task. Now, in those particular tasks, they need an evaluation of the text structures that they need to be well aware of. Now, what's interesting for me is that if I am doing the getting started activity, and this is something that I forgot to mention something, and that's my bad. You don't have to teach, when we looked at the reading and writing portions of the textbook, you don't have to teach, now I'm doing only the reading portion, now I'm doing only the writing portion. Why I had this reflection was that I just started the session with the reading unit 1.1 and 2, and I had aligned the unit 2 of reading with unit 7 of writing, because I thought that there is a lot of similarities that can be done. So just with that reflection, I wanted to mention that as well. So as we are looking at the writing task over here, supposedly it's from the writing unit, unit 7, we are also looking at the voice you should write, the text type you are being asked to write in, the purpose of your writing, and a reminder to use the material from the writing task as well. And this is very, very important. It is an extension of the author's effect. As you can see that they have given several sentences. Now we are looking at how we can think as a reader, writer, reading for readers, reading for writers, writing for writers, or writing for reading. And this is a writing for writers thing. You're aware you are a writer, and then you have to make certain choices, right? So if I use the word despondent, will I be able to clearly mention what my character is feeling? If I use the word glum, will I be able to convey the intensity of what my character is feeling? So these are choices that a writer is making. And when you're encouraging, you are encouraging your learners to take on different roles for different questions, but also like for lower secondary and primary, sometimes they are reading for writing, right? And which is mostly a summary, main point sort of thing. And sometimes they are writing as writers. Which is mostly that they are really, really conscious of the way that they are using the language. This is what it looks like in the course book. The video that I showed, usually you would have the video popping up if you have a video for that item, and then you would have the text. And I would like you to have a little bit of look into the strategies given in presenting your views. Now you can see that you are equipping your learners with the different voice that's required for argumentative writing and that's required for persuasive writing. And I repeat, this is not just limited to the IGCSE section. This is taken from a stage 6 book. And you can see that as early as the primary level, lower secondary level, they are exposed to different kinds of text, how they can present a balanced view, how they can create a strong viewpoint, what's the difference between different skill types, text types, all these things are taken into account. This is again taken from an IGCSE book, the sixth edition book, but from the reading section. And you can see that there is a very, very clear, rather than saying, oh, this is, they are given clear examples of what the language in a biography will look like, what the language in an autobiography will look like, what a horror story might look like, right? And this is very, very important as we are looking into the various scaffolding that is required. Then we are providing them with more scaffolding. We are helping them to choose a distinctive voice, but that's not where it stops. Sample examples of how they have to adapt to the speech type. I'll just give you a simple example, not that it matters in the examination a lot. This candidate, we had one of the candidate who was given this text type of a speech, and the candidate gave the exam and was very happy. And when the candidate was talking about, I mentioned this, then one of our colleague who was teaching that section just asked that, but did you adapt it to the speech type? And the candidate was like, no. So as you can see that the candidate can have all the necessary information given, but if the question has demanded that it has to be written as a speech, you can see the modeling that is given in the course book. Like, good morning. I like to tell my son that school days are the best days of your life. He looks at me with suspicion and assumes I'm being sarcastic. So, usually, when we have a text skill type, which is a speech, most of the time the first one or two lines are you're just talking about introducing yourself, how you're glad to be there at that particular place, and how important that particular skill text type and having that distinctive voice means. So as you can see that this kind of scaffolding and modeling gives a very clear insight into the students that how they can adapt it to the specific skill type that is demanded. So right in the first unit, they are not asked to write specific skill text type. They are just asked to identify specific skill text type. So if you remember how we started with the learning intention and just breaking it down, not throwing them in the deep end of the water and saying that, okay, write a speech, write an article, write a biography. First, they were asked to identify. They were given examples of what different skill text type looks like. So you can see how the scaffolding progresses as well through the course book as well. So unit 1.1 had specific skill text type. By unit 7, you are giving them examples of how to write. So first is the identification, then there is a progression that is happening, and then there is a lot of hand holding given. This is again taken from a stage 6 book, how right from a very early age, the learners are made to distinguish between what's a persuasive writing, what's a news report, and they are also made to be aware of the language choices that's happening, why they think that it's a persuasive writing and not an argumentative writing. You can see that right from this stage, features of a news report is highlighted, right? So the text skill type is not something that is happening in isolation in IGCSE stage. Again, IGCSE is a syllabus they are covering. The curriculum of FLE has this as a skill type that is identifying the various skill text types, right? So the curriculum is being reinforced again and again through all the stages. So it's applicable through all the stages as well. And we just have to be a little bit more careful in how the scaffolding is provided. Now, again, when you look at the workbook, particular examples have to be used. Now, this is something I would like to draw your attention to. This is coming to what skills we are testing and how we are testing those particular skills. This language focus, arranging complex sentences, particularly comes in the writing part. I'm not saying that in the reading part it doesn't matter, but that's not the skill they are being tested on. So if they do not use a lot of complex sentences, but they are able to decipher what the task asks, like in the summary writing task, if they are able to decipher the main idea of the text, give examples. It doesn't really matter if they are writing complex sentences because that's not what they are being tested for. But in the writing task, we have a different focus, the way they are basing their sentences. So that again is the scaffolding that's given in each and every box. So suddenly someone can come and say, but I don't understand why this learner scored this much marks with the same language in the reading paper and this much marks in with the same language in the writing paper. We are using the Cambridge resources, like published by the Cambridge University Press. So if I can just quickly go back to where we started from. So this is the resource that we are using in terms of the course book that we have. Yes, the CUP textbook and the course book. And when you have everything on Cambridge Go, this is what it looks like in terms of everything that you have on Cambridge Go. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Yes. So over here, we can just clearly see that there is a lot of scaffolding that's given on the workbook as in the workbook as well, in terms of how the writing task and the assessment task is used. This is what it looks like for the specimen, like what the examiner is expecting. And you can see that the course book is slowly preparing the learners. They are preparing the learners for the purpose, the audience, the form, and what the expectations are. But the text type, I just want to also for you to emphasize on when they are publishing the sample candidate response, this is an interview. And can you see how the candidate has adapted to the text type? Hello, thanks for having me on this program today. No problem. We are welcome to have you. Regarding your memories of that particular night, what did you see and feel during your journeys through that city that night? And this is where it's very important, where this choosing the distinctive voice, but also the sample comes in handy because your learners exactly know. And these samples are not just one of samples, right? These samples are given throughout the textbook. They are having a lot of understanding of how to use the samples. Now, this is two questions, one taken from the reading paper and the other taken from the writing paper. As you can see, the left-hand side is paper one, the right-hand side, my right-hand side is paper two. And why I wanted to showcase this is two very different skills are being assessed over here. Sometimes the questions can look the same. So in both these questions, the candidates would have to adapt to the skill type mentioned. So as you can see in the reading paper, the skill type, the text type mentioned is an interview. And as you can see in the writing paper, the text type mentioned is an article. So both the candidates have adapted to the text type beautifully. As you can see that marks are awarded for reading and marks are awarded for writing. Now, as the writing paper question is also based on two texts that have differing opinions, so marks are awarded also for reading and writing as well. And in the reading comprehension paper, of course, they are having to extend the thought from the character or the story. Therefore, the way they have been able to interpret the ideas, that is also marked. But there is two different skill set that is assessed over here. Even though the text type and the answers might look similar, the assessment objective over here is more how the information on my left hand side, the reading paper is how the information has been extracted, how the candidate has been able to develop that thought and voice their opinion. And on the other hand, the persuasive, the argumentative, how the candidate has been able to extract the tone, the voice, what implicit, explicit meaning was given, and how the candidate was able to develop through that, that is what is being tested as well. To just showcase a very small example that how we are having different ideas of assessment in terms of the skill involved. Now, this particular question is taken from the reading paper. It's very important for us to understand what is being tested, because until or unless we don't understand, we will not be able to equip the learners. Now, because the primary skill that was being tested over here is extraction of information, I don't know if you can spot there are two spelling errors here, one of fuel and one of pollution. That has been overlooked because, as I talked about, the learning intention and the subsequent success criteria that was measured because it's a reading paper was overlooked. The same thing in a writing paper would not be overlooked because there would be a different skill set that would be assessed. So it's not something, oh, they would not cut marks for grammar, or it's a communicative approach, but we have to know which skill set is being tested upon for each of the questions. And now we are coming to the part that I feel it's very difficult sometimes to have a concrete overview of how to make your learners practice descriptive writing. Now, I'm going to share from my personal experience a little bit. I made this mistake when I first started teaching the syllabus of not scaffolding the descriptive writing enough. So I would just come into the class and I would give them a lot of tools. I would give them a lot of additional reading strategies, reading text, but I would not break down the descriptive writing. I would just tell them, write a descriptive writing. I'm giving them a lot of support in terms of I'm giving them extracts, I'm giving them other novels to read, I'm giving them text extracts. This is what the course book does. And this really, really provides you with all the hand holding that you would be needing to kind of acclimatize your learner how to write descriptive writing in a more layered way, right? So, first, you start with, again, as we start with everything, do not throw them at the deep end of the pool. So, you start slowly. You ask them first to describe places. So they know that, okay, in a descriptive writing, I'm not being asked to describe everything. I'm just asked to describe the places. Then I'm asked to describe the setting. And in the setting, you can see language focus boxes given where there is the scaffolded sensory information that has been provided as well. Then we have describing details, right? And this is how the descripting task is again broken down. We again are helping the learners to decode. The workbook has the corresponding 9.2 activity as well. So we have describing details in the course book, we have describing details in the workbook with the details as well. So you can see that the learners are not asked just vaguely, can you start describing details? A lot of hand holding is provided where you can see a question like, choose an outdoor place you know well, such as a place you regularly visit or the street where you live. Write three sentences describing the features of the place. You might describe buildings, natural objects, or human made objects. And then they have clearly defined sentence one, two, three. So, can you understand how this might take away the apprehension from your learners when they are asked to give in when they are asked to write a descriptive writing of 250 words, right? And we are introducing them with the question paper and say that this is the descriptive writing. Vis-a-vis, you start with three sentences of describing a place you know well, and we are providing them with the layering and the scaffolding that is required and needed. Again, when we are breaking down the descriptive writing task more, we are talking about how do you describe events. And the workbook is giving you a scaffolded idea of the approach and example that you have to do. Again, with describing people, this is a strategy I'm sure a lot of you are already using, show, don't tell. So rather than describing the actions of the learners, you're constantly talking about, like, show, rather than telling what the actions are. And this is what the examiner script looks like with the descriptive writing, because you can see that there is a lot of scaffolding that is happening. So first it has a describing of the event. So the learners have a clear, rather than saying, write a descriptive piece, when they are given transferable skills and strategies like this, it makes their brain break down the same question and the task in a different way. And the way they are able to provide the detail and the scaffolding adds a lot of richness to what they are able to reflect upon. And with the narrative writing as well, I can go into a lot more detail with the narrative writing and the descriptive writing. I'm just a little mindful of the time as well, because I know that all of you are taking out time, so we don't want to extend the time. So, even with the narrative writing as well, we are aware of how you are breaking down the task. So you can see a very, very small scaffolding that is given in the workbook: tragedy, thriller, romance, science fiction. It's activating, right? So it comes back to that identification of the genre that we talked about even as early as lower secondary and stage. Um, Talking about which genre they want to apply. Then again, you are breaking down, orienting the reader. From which perspective you want the reader to have a look? Is it the omnipresent narrator? Right? Are you having the first person account, and what are the limitations of that first person account as well? Then you have the task of presenting the characters, and you have a lot of help and scaffolding that is given for dialogue. And you can see they are not asked to write dialogues initially. They are given a lot of hand holding. Well, the version A dialogue will look like this, the version B dialogue will look like this. So initially, a lot of it is for them to be able to identify the strategy, techniques, the way the word works, the way the language works. So a lot of it is linked to that particular element and part of that. Again, this is very, very important. Right? There are so many times when I see this is something I'm sure a lot of you must also be feeling with your learners. They start they chalk out amazing stories, right? And the ending is so scattered because the planning has not been done right. So again, we are equipping them with strategies to improve their structure, to make them have an understanding of how they can plan the structure. So just the planning, and you can see that scaffolding is given for the plan. The narrator, a young girl, is playing happily on a beach with her family. In the water, they spot a boy. So just these very, very simple strategies that are provided gives a lot of hand holding to the learners, and it takes away their apprehension that now I have to write a narrative writing of 250 words, and they really enjoy. So I start with like, okay, can you write one paragraph of this dialogue between two characters? And they really get into, and they can add those nuances to the dialogue. And eventually, as you increase the intensity of the task, you can see that it's way more organic rather than just imposing from the deep end. And this is exactly, again, what the narrative writing structure looks like from an examiner point of view. You can see that there is a lot of the same layering that we looked, and the broken down scaffolding that we looked at the course book. It's there. Again, as you can see that if you are using the strategies, you do not have to depend on the examiner comments, right? Because it's not, so it shouldn't come as a surprise for you. The problem that is happening is, I think a lot of you are aware that Cambridge is returning the script back since last year. So I, for some of the educators, it's always a little bit of surprise. Oh, this has happened. So my main preemptive, I would say, strategy is not to be surprised when the grading comes in. So I, as an educator, should be very well aware of what the expectation, assessment objectives, criteria my learners were being tested upon, and also to give my learners the agency of those learning intentions and those expectations as well. So just have, again, a lot of information has been unfolded. So just a quick reflection if you have any questions and any quick queries or anything. I think we have a question, and I can answer this right now. I think a part of what we have been talking about sort of answers this, Mr. Sneem, if I'm not wrong. Yes, they can find the thesaurus tedious. What happens is, I would like to always look at it. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for all of your feedback. Um, I would like to look at it from not overwhelming them with the vocabulary, but I look at it from this perspective. I'm very frugal when I'm introducing the vocabulary. Why I use the word frugal is I'm very conscious that the vocabulary that I'm introducing, they are able to use that effectively and in a better way as we are looking forward to that structure. So, not introducing words that I might not have immediate need for my lesson. So, one way is that I might make a list of 5 words that might have utility in the descriptive writing task I might be using that day. Right. And I would just ask them to explore whether they are comfortable in using those words as the activity is unfolding. Go FLE login IDs and passwords. These have changed now, and it is not. Miss Jyoti, I think Miss Ruchi will be able to answer that. But from what I know, is to have access. You can have the trial resources, and I'll keep 5 minutes where I can show that you can how you can access the trial resources for a month, a free trial resource for a month. But you need to purchase the books to have the digital code for the Cambridge Go account. But I'll just ask also Ms. Ruchi to step in, but you can have the trial resource for a month. Yes, Miss Shalini, I would definitely show you the workbook. As I also mentioned that I have included snippets of the workbook side by side when we are doing the slides. I'll point them out more as well. And I'll also keep 5 minutes to just take you through Cambridge Go and the resources available so that you have a clear idea of how you're using them. So we come to the last segment, and this segment is metacognition, right? It's a very, very important segment. Thank you all for your feedback. I think I saw Amber for Miss Shalini, so I think it's related to the workbook. If there is any other sort of query you have, then you can just put it in the Q&A as well. But I'll also show you the workbook specifically. I have more slides from the workbook as well, so I'll just point them out more to you. Yes. So, in terms of metacognition, I was just talking about a little bit of that reflection of where your learners are, where they want to go. As an educator, I feel empowered if I know where my learners are going, but I also feel empowered when I know my learners also have the agency as well. So, metacognition is thinking about thinking. Metacognition describes the processes involved when learners plan, monitor, evaluate, and make changes to their own learning behaviors, right? How I would like to look at metacognition is the sort of AFL strategies that are embedded in the course book itself. Now, this is a common anecdote that I share even in my offline training sessions. I had one of my learners come up to me and say, my grandmother is an English teacher, and she would have given me way more marks than what you have given me. And that struck me because I felt that I have not been able to translate the learning intentions and the success criteria in an effective manner because he doesn't have agency of where his response is in terms of what he is being tested upon. So it's a very important component that has been added in the 6th edition. This edition especially has a lot of AFL strategies. We'll just have a quick look at the AFL strategies that this section is exploring. There are 2 responses given. Again, it's not a complete handholding. Trust you me, I've done this without these prompts. I just came and gave them, like, compare these two responses and tell me which response. They are lost. That's the active learning part, that we are giving them the scaffolding. We are giving them the comments, and we are just asking them to map the comments with the responses that they think would work with them. So again, we are not introducing them. Once they are more confident with strategizing along these lines, then we can ask them. But we cannot start with that. We can just give them two responses and say, what do you think about it? But they have been given a full prompt, and they just would have to match more AFL strategies, metacognition. The learners have agency of where they are. They can not only compare the different writings and understand which they would mark. So if they have an understanding of what mark they would be giving to a particular, and not only just marks, more like feedback as well, not just clinical assessment mark, but more like feedback based comments as well, they would have a clearer understanding of where they are going and what needs to be done specifically for their part as well. So that becomes very, very important. Again, we have more metacognitive strategies, reflections. Now, this is something that I would share. The course book is filled with self assessment parts, and I would not spend enough time with the self assessment boxes. This is not unique to IGCSE course book. This is, of course, some of you who are using the lower secondary books as well as the primary books. It's unique to the books for all levels. And spend some time. It really, really empowers the learners. It gives them a lot of agency. This is the word that I really look to, giving students agency in their own learning. And the course book is filled with evaluating the responses, using your own words. Give 3 reasons why people on a tight budget may prefer to shop online. And they have been given several responses. Now they have to rate the responses, and they would have to provide the feedback. Right? Lots of metacognitive strategies. Again, as you can see, make notes on what feedback you would offer on each response to help the students improve their summary writing. And they are given the comments as well. So they are not asked to write the comments initially completely on their own. And this is how I look at it. It's the gradual release model, right? I do it, you watch, we do it together, you do it alone. And it's very effective. Now, why I have chosen this particular project is also because you can see that this project is pushing the learner to think like a teacher. So the project is, in groups, create a revision guide presentation on writer's effects using slides to illustrate the key learning points with text. So it's essentially a metacognitive project. It's essentially a reflection on what they had done in the previous unit and how they can have a reflection on this in the next unit as well. So this is a very, very interesting bit. And just to unpick, what would work for me, this project is something that I cannot afford to skip. I would really clamp down and use a project like this, because it helps me to put my learners see things from a different perspective. So Ms. Shalini, this is again taken from a workbook, right? And again, you can see that in the workbook, we have the same metacognitive strategy that is given. The following student responses from the middle section of a letter to a cousin, and then highlight the number parts of the text to identify 3 different features. And they have been given the prompts, and now they would have to identify. Now, this part of it is also so. The left hand, so my right hand side is the workbook, and the one with the colors is taken from the course book. So it's exactly corresponding. So you are getting to see what starts in the course book and the scaffolding that is given in the workbook as well. So improving endings, as we can see, ending 1, ending 2, they are being provided to think. So initially, by saying that, oh, you can just write an ending, they are being made to think about endings. They have been given the prompts and the scaffolding about endings. And that comes again in the workbook when they are asked to write a paragraph explaining what feeling leaves you with, and why is it an effective ending. So they are being just asked to reflect on the ending, not write the whole thing together, but just have a reflection. So that kind of consolidates their learning on how they can plan their ending. So if this ending made me feel like this, then they will be more careful. Like the problem which we first identified, that they can start the narrative writing wonderfully, but then they might just lose track. Again, you can see that there is a lot of scaffolding given in terms of the coursework, in terms of the ending, and how we can look at the structures as well. Now, this is something that I just included to show the spiral curriculum more. In each stage, the workbook is aligned with the Bloom's taxonomy. And of course, we have the focus, practice, and the challenge questions, which is aligned to focus is the identification, practice is the application, and challenge is, of course, the evaluation skills that we are talking about. And the workbooks of all the stages are aligned with Bloom's taxonomy and the focus, practice, and challenge questions that we come to. And this is across all the stages. And this is where we come to the next stage, and a very important stage is how we look at the command words. In Cambridge IGCSE, we have a very, very, very good emphasis on the command words. Show me, tell me, convince me is the assessment objectives. Show me is basically your focus. Tell me is basically your practice. Convince me is basically challenge, which goes back to focus is how many ducks are there in the pond. Your command word changes to what might be influencing the behavior, and your evaluation is if ducks could speak, would we understand them? So it's happening right from the primary level. Um, so this is the importance of the command words. It tells learners exactly what the question is asking them to do, helps them to shape the response. Misinterpreting a command word can lead to the irrelevant responses coming up, and they can decode the questions effectively. Now, this is taken from the syllabus document. Uh, so at the end of the syllabus document, you have reinforcement of the command words. That's why they are very, very strict when it comes to command word misinterpretation, because that is they understand that they didn't understand the task, right? We had one of the learners this time as well, repeatedly, for even for AS level 8021 essay questions, we have misinterpretation of the command word, and the learner took an evaluate question and wrote to what extent, right? So evaluate and to what extent, the justification part and the challenge part is a little different. We had another learner who wrote, who took a describe command word and wrote evaluation sort of points where they were judging and calculating the quality. So this is taken from the previous syllabus, that is 2024, 25, 26. This list of command words is taken from the new syllabus, which is 2027. But I insist the command word is the same for primary, lower secondary. So even if you want to hand it over to your lower secondary teachers as well, command words are very, very important, and stressing on the command word. Now, this is taken from the learner guide. It's available on the school support hub. So you can see why they are really, really critical of how the command word is being interpreted. Explain what the text means is this, use your own words is this. So just a misinterpretation of any of this would really land them into trouble. So describe is the command word, and there is a lot of scaffolding given to what the describe question is at the end. Now, in the course book, and you can see the questions and how the command word changes. Use your own word, choose three, describe an object. In the course book, as I've numbered the page as well, there is a lot of scaffolding given for command words as well. So this is exactly how you are given the expectation, the examiner expectation, as I was talking about, the skill expectation that the learner is supposed to have. So this is very important that we don't also miss out on the boxes. that are there. So we'll just take a quick review, and we have reached the end. I would just quickly go through Cambridge Go and just a little bit of consolidation of everything that we have talked about. So if I can just have a quick reflection that are we good to go? Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. This is just a very quick snippet of, how from this is taken actually from a global English book, how gamification of the narrative writing can happen. Setting time changes with the rolling of the dice, the character can change, the dilemma can change, right? And this is, really, really effective. Thank you so much for all your wonderful reflections. It's really, really heartening. Um, I just wanted to show you, we shouldn't miss out the fun part. Cambridge course books, right from the early years, primary stages, are culturally relevant. So they would also have a lot of stories that are taken from the Indian context, because it's very important for them that the learners identify. So this is taken from, a stage 5 book, and we can see that over here it's a science fiction story written by an Indian author, Shotojit Ray. Then we have, of course, in stage 7, Meeting Our Hero, which we have for this. Thank you for those reflections. And of course, in the IGCSE book, we have the Bollywood part. So it really, really helps the learners to have the cultural capital. Before we have a quick tour of the Cambridge Go site, I just wanted to show you all the boxes that are important. If you just want to have a snippet of this, these are all the boxes that you will find in the course book. The writing tip, the reading tip, the speaking and the listening tip boxes, the command words, the key terms, getting started, the project and the reflections, everything. And these are the other areas that you can look into that really helps you to scaffold the activities. These boxes um, are there. No, the publications are not at all different, because we are having so many questions about Cambridge Go. This is what the Cambridge Go site looks like. I hope it's visible for everyone. So as we were mentioning, and some of you were, so you can also find and use trial resources. But I would mention that in the trial resources, you will not have access to all the worksheets. There would be limited access to the worksheets, but you can still try them out for 1 month. Once you buy your book, so this is what the book looks like. I don't know, right? And you would have the 16-digit code that is visible in the book as well. Finding it difficult to show, but as you open the first page, you will find the 16-digit code in the book as well. And then you can activate your resources with the code, right? And once you have added your resources, you would add your course book separately. If you buy the workbook gets added. You would have all the materials that you would be needing. You would have your teacher resource. You would have all your videos that you would be needing to access from here itself. So this is what the Cambridge Go site will look like. Someone had asked me to show, I think it was Ms. Shalini as well, the workbook. That you would be accessing. It's just taking some time to load. And then you have the teacher resource with the teaching notes, the introductory material that we talked about, the curriculum framework, everything that you would be needing. This is what the workbook looks like. As you can see, you have this different units, right? And the course book and the workbook are the same. And this is what the course book looks like. You can see the media resources, the video that I showed you. So for each of the unit, you would have the video part. With the 16-digit, is it only available? If you're going for the trial resource, you would have limited access to the worksheet, and it will be available for 1 month. If you're buying the book, the access is like as long as you need it, right? So you would have full access to it for the entire time. I hope that answers the question. Um, I think we also have some questions in the Q&A session with regard to the certificate. I can see some questions with regard to the certificate and class 9 and 10 division. So Miss Kanika, if I'm not wrong, I think your question is that how you can um, divide the IGCSE syllabus between 9 and 10, if I'm not wrong. Is that the query that you had? Uh, so for me, I think I would just like to look at it from this. Okay, that is the query that you had. So for me, I would like to look at it from this fashion that in class 9, because you don't have the pressure of assessment and everything, you can go a little bit slow. So you can introduce your learners with a lot of getting started activity. You can use some of the scaffolded learning activities. From class 10, I would say that make them more aware. So use the course book as much as you want. Make them more aware of the assessment objectives. So how I divide it is in class 9, I'm letting them explore more, getting them more acclimatized to the syllabus, and then talking about the structures. We also have a question of where are the videos. As you can see that in the course book, when you open the course book, for each of the unit, you would have this media and you would have the videos here. So I hope that's visible for everyone, how the videos are scaffolded. Ms. Jyoti had asked for the charges of the book. I think you can check out, you can ask your school to get in touch with the Cambridge team, and they will be able to guide you through the charges as well. And just a quick reflection for everyone. We also have PD courses where you can do a professional development course where you can do the course and then bring the scaffolding for your teachers in your school. So Cambridge has a lot of PD courses that are being supported for the teachers. So this is just the QR code for any PD course that you might be interested in. You can log in and check which PD course works for you. The professional development courses can be a very, very good way of having a lot of reflections on your teaching strategies as well. Also sharing a lot of information and details with your colleagues. So I hope that you have a full overview of how you are going to able to use the resources in terms of access of Cambridge Go. So once you have the books, you can just log into Cambridge Go and you can have the account. So I can just show you, I think now I'm able to. So once you purchase the book, I don't know if the screen is clear. There is a 16-digit code over here that you can have access to, and then you can go to the Cambridge Go account, create an account with your email, or if you have an existing account, then you can activate it with your